It is Wednesday, 4:30 in the afternoon. Your boss messages you on Slack, "Got a sec? Can you swing by my office?" You walk in, he closes the door, sits down across from you. He sighs, runs a hand through his hair, and says, "Look, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm having a really hard time. Things have been brutal upstairs. My VP is impossible to deal with." And in that moment, your chest actually warms up a little. He is confiding in me. He sees me as more than just a report. But notice this. From that moment on, you're working a second job. Unpaid, undocumented, and there is no clocking out. Today, we're breaking down a kind of work that doesn't exist on any job description, but quietly drains more energy than your actual work does. In the American workplace, it is called emotional outsourcing. Let me start with the research. Sociologist Arlie Hochschild coined a term back in 1983, emotional labor. The work of managing your own feelings and other people's feelings as part of a job. Flight attendants, nurses, customer service reps all knew about this for decades. But in modern knowledge work, emotional labor has been quietly redirected. Upward from the manager, downward onto the direct report. Gallup data on workplace well-being shows that employees with emotionally needy managers report significantly higher rates of burnout and disengagement, even when their actual workload is no greater than their peers. Why? Because they're carrying their own work and their boss's emotional regulation. Now I'm going to break down how a single closed-door conversation, through 5 stages, turns a trusted employee into an unpaid therapist that spends evenings replaying their boss's complaints in their head, and weekends bracing for Monday's emotional weather report. If you start to feel it sounds familiar by stage 3, stop and think about it. That is not a coincidence. Stage 1, the closed-door reframe. The first sentence, "Hey, can I close the door for a second?" Or, "I just need to vent for a minute off the record." Or, "Don't repeat this, but..." This sounds like intimacy, like you've been chosen. You're being trusted with something the rest of the team doesn't get to hear. But notice what is actually happening. The closed door isn't protecting you. It is protecting him. He is about to say things a manager isn't supposed to say. About other employees, about his peers, about leadership. And by closing the door, he is transferring the risk of those words to you. You're now holding information you can't unhear. And that information, by definition, you can't share. Sociologist Erving Goffman wrote about this dynamic. He called it secret keeping as bonding. The act of sharing a secret creates an artificial sense of closeness. But it is a closeness that runs entirely in his favor, not yours. Stage 2, the role reversal. The second sentence, "I just feel like nobody up there gets it." Or, "Honestly, I'm the only one fighting for this team." Or, "You wouldn't believe what they expect from me." At this point, the conversation tips quietly. You walked in as the subordinate asking what he needed. 3 minutes later, he is the one who needs something, and you're providing it. You start nodding, you say, "Yeah, that sounds really hard." You ask follow-up questions, you offer perspective. Congratulations, you're now performing the duties of a therapist for a client who never agreed to pay you and who outranks you in every other context. Psychologist Carl Rogers wrote about active listening as a clinical skill, a skill that requires training, boundaries, and crucially, a session ending time, none of which exist in your boss's office. You can't say, "We're out of time today. Let's pick this up next Tuesday." You can only sit there until he decides he is done. Stage 3, the loyalty installation. The third sentence comes after he has vented for a while. And it sounds like this: "I'm so glad I can talk to you. I really can't talk to anyone else here." Stop and read that again. "I can't talk to anyone else here." What he just did in one sentence is install a loyalty contract. You are now the only person who knows what he really thinks. about the company, about leadership, about your coworkers. That is not a privilege. That is a liability. Because the moment you ever consider leaving, switching teams, going to HR, that liability comes with you. He knows what you know. This is what behavioral economists call asymmetric vulnerability. The illusion that you're in something together, when in reality, only one of you can actually be hurt by what was said. And it isn't him. Stage 4, the emotional weather forecast. The fourth stage doesn't show up as a sentence, it shows up as a habit. You start your Monday morning by checking his Slack messages. Not for work updates, but for tone. Is the punctuation clipped today? Are the periods missing? Did he use his usual emoji or just type, "Oh"? You're running a meteorological analysis of his emotional state before you've even opened your own inbox. Hochschild called this emotional vigilance, the constant low-grade scanning of someone else's feelings to predict their behavior. And here is the part that should terrify you. Your nervous system can't tell the difference between scanning a tiger and scanning your boss's Slack tone. The same cortisol gets released, the same stress response activates. You're not at work yet, but your body has already clocked in. Stage 5, the silent contract. The fifth and final stage, you don't notice when it happens, but you'll feel its weight every single day after. You're in a meeting and your boss makes a decision you disagree with, or you see him treat another colleague unfairly, or you watch him take credit for someone else's idea, and you say nothing. Why? Because 3 weeks ago in his office with the door closed, he told you, "I'm the only one fighting for this team." He told you, "I can't talk to anyone else here." And now, to push back on him would feel like a betrayal of a relationship he carefully constructed, and you didn't agree to. Sociologist Niklas Luhmann called this binding through trust. The most powerful form of control isn't fear, it is emotional debt. You're not staying silent because you're afraid of him. You're staying silent because you've been made to feel responsible for him. At this point, you might ask, is he doing this intentionally? My answer is almost never, and that is what makes it worse. Because emotional outsourcing isn't a manipulation tactic that managers learn. It is a coping mechanism they default to when their own job has overwhelmed them. The American middle manager is one of the most emotionally exposed roles in the economy, squeezed between executive demands and team needs with no real authority over either. And the cheapest way to relieve that pressure isn't therapy, it isn't coaching. It is finding one direct report who looks like they'll listen and unloading. That direct report is almost always the person with the highest empathy and the lowest political instinct to refuse. That direct report is almost always you. So you have to understand this. His vulnerability isn't a gift. It is a transfer of weight from a system he can't fix onto a person who can't refuse. Recognizing this mechanism isn't about becoming cold or distant. It is about taking back the right to keep your own emotional bandwidth for yourself. 3 signals to check whether you're being emotionally outsourced. First, after one-on-ones with your boss, do you feel drained, even when nothing about your actual work was discussed? Second, do you find yourself thinking about his moods on evenings or weekends when you should be off the clock? Third, has he ever told you, "I can't talk to anyone else about this," and then proceeded to talk about it for 30 minutes? If 2 out of 3 apply, you've already taken the second job. The first step to breaking it isn't to be cruel or to shut him out. It is a very simple redirect. The next time he closes the door and says, "I just need to vent," you say back warmly, "That sounds really tough. Have you talked to your manager about it? Or someone in HR who could actually help with it?" That single sentence does 2 things. It validates his feeling and it returns the problem to a system that is actually equipped to handle it. Not you. Next episode, we're breaking down a sharper mechanism. Your boss says, "I trust your judgment, just run with it." It sounds like autonomy. It sounds like respect. It is neither. The tactic is called vague instructions. If someone you know is also carrying their boss's emotions home every night, share this video with them. Drop a comment, tell me which stage started sounding familiar. See you next time.